welcome along to Memory Issues Month. Today I'm chatting with Claire Doherty. And Claire, do you want to tell us a bit about what you do, and then we'll start talking about memory?
Hi Emily, thanks for having me. So for those of you that don't know me, I am a nutritional therapist and a medical intuitive, and I'm just going to talk today with Emily about how perimenopause can impact our memory, particularly our short-term memory.
Cool. So it's kind of one of those well bandied around jokes that those of us in perimenopause will walk into a room and we haven't the faintest idea why we've gone in there, or we put something down and we don't know what we've done with it, and we maybe sort of half complete lots of tasks because each one we start doing, we see something else and off we go. And it's I guess it's a well bandied around joke because it's true for so many of us. So what's going on? Why are we having these short-term memory issues?
Well, it's kind of multifaceted. So the most sort of prominent reason is because we experience fluctuations in our hormones, and so we get these kind of peaks and troughs of estrogen. And with the falling estrogen, that can actually have a direct effect on our short-term memory. But also combined with that, we also tend to be more prone to suffering with issues with energy during perimenopause, because our sex hormones and their production can impact our hormones that help to control our blood sugar balance and our hunger. And so when that happens, we can make food choices that might err towards foods that are more energy dense foods, so things like carbohydrate rich foods or coffee, sugary treats, things like that, to perk us up. And let's face it, because we're feeling a bit shit and we think, well, why shouldn't I have something nice? And indeed, why shouldn't we? But that can sort of feed into this cycle with our sex hormones, because it unbalances the blood sugar. And when that happens, your body's not in homeostasis anymore. And as it fights to remove sugar from your bloodstream to get everything back to normal, it has peaks and troughs, much like your estrogen and progesterone production does. And this can also impact the memory. So you've kind of got a double whammy going on. You can be having the component to do with the estrogen, and then the components to do with the blood sugar. And then a third thing on top of that, because let's not make it easy, let's make it as complex as we can. The third thing on top of that is that we can tend to get quite stressed at this period of our lives, because it's quite overwhelming, isn't it? And we've got all these new symptoms. We don't particularly know what's going on. I mean, getting confirmation that we are actually in perimenopause is hard enough. And so, the amount of us that walk around seeking help, asking questions, being told it's not this, it's not that, and because we don't know what it is, we can't access the right support for ourselves. So that's quite a stressful thing. And also, when we're feeling tired and our bodies are changing, that in itself is stressful, because we try to kind of keep going. We still got to go to work, still got our family, we've got people around us that don't really understand what's going on. 50% of the time we want to rip somebody's head off, but we can't because we're not allowed. And so this all kind of adds to this kind of stress that can build within us. And when we're stressed, our body makes stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, which basically kind of put us in that fight or flight response and keep us awake. But that can impact on your blood sugar, and it can make your blood sugar rise up and down, which then impacts on your sex hormones, which impacts on your memory. And it can also impact directly on your production of stress hormones. So, some short-term stress isn't that much of an issue. But if we're in that period of long-term stress that I know we've talked about before, when you're on that brink of entering adrenal fatigue, or chronic fatigue, problems with your adrenal glands, then that's not beneficial. And actually what can happen then is that you've got these sustained levels of stress hormones that are having an impact then on the production of your sex hormones, because that sequence of hormones, your sex hormones and your stress hormones, sort of come from one master hormone, if you like, and your body will always prioritize your stress hormones over your sex hormones, because your stress hormones keep you alive. We need those to be able to run away and to be able to be alert. But this all impacts on our short-term memory. So we can have all three of those things going on at the same time, which can be really detrimental to kind of, remembering things. It's one of the, I don't know if you've ever done it, but have you ever got in the car and you're driving somewhere? I mean, I do it all the time, actually. And then I go, where am I going again? Where am I going? And sometimes it takes me kind of like half a mile before I go, I can remember where I'm going. It's almost like a sort of zone out. But, I get people all the time that, will come to me and say that happens to them, on a weekly basis. I mean, it doesn't happen that often with me, thank you very much. But, and as you've just said, kind of walking into a room or going to the supermarket without a list and forgetting what it is you've been for. In fact, getting home and realizing you've got everything else apart from that one item that you really need for dinner. So it can be, it can be really, really frustrating. So there's things that you can do for yourself that will, potentially help to support your memory, which are quite easy to implement. And these are things that I'm going to suggest that anyone can do that are really easy. That there are certain supplements that you can take that will help to support your blood sugar, or that will help to support the stress response, things like that. But you really need to work with somebody to be able to get those supplements in the right doses and the right ones safely, and that should be checked with any medication that you're taking. So please don't sort of take lots of supplements without consulting someone. But from a lifestyle and a diet perspective, I always think, well, let's take people back to basics and let's start with something that's going to impact all three of those systems. And so what we find is there's a few things that will do that. So obvious things are trying to make sure that you're getting enough sleep. So not eating your last meal too late at night. So if people are eating their meal at like 9 or 9:30 and going to bed at 10:30, then I would normally encourage them to bring it forward, because the other thing that is lesser of an impact but can impact is your sleep quality. And if you're not getting good sleep, that will also affect your memory. Trying to support your blood sugar by trying to make kind of healthy choices. And by that, I don't mean, never eating a cake or never having a biscuit. We have to keep things balanced. We don't want to go to extremes. So by that, I would mean trying to make sure that you're having a good amount of protein each meal, whether that comes from an animal or a plant, and that you're having a good amount of plants in your diet, so vegetables, and a good variation, so that you're getting lots of different minerals and vitamins. Because when we're stressed, we use up a lot of vitamins and minerals, things like magnesium, vitamin C, B vitamins, and those can impact our memory. So trying to replenish those through your diet can be really, really useful. And of course, sort of trying to reduce foods that might, bring up your blood sugar levels or might make you feel a little bit jittery and stressed, things like caffeine. Things like drinking alcohol on an empty stomach, or drinking excessively a lot of the time. Try and reduce that a little bit. Try and, if you're going to have a glass of wine, have that with your meal rather than, having a lot to drink before you've eaten. So just making sure that you eat regularly as well, because a lot of us put weight on and then we try really hard to, you know, control that, or, you know, to stop it from kind of, you know, increasing. And so I will often get people that come to work with me that are eating a bit of breakfast, not very much lunch, and then eating a main meal. So they don't really eat very much in the day. And although it's nice to have a big gap in between our meals because it gives our digestion a rest, if we've got unbalanced blood sugar levels, or if we're stressed, we can frequently need to eat more regularly. So it sounds a bit counterintuitive that you might need to eat more to lose weight, or, you know, to help to manage that memory loss. But if we do that, we can often keep our blood sugar levels more on an even keel, which can then help to support this issue with memory loss. And then, of course,
that could be easy little snacks, can't it? Sort of, I don't know, like an apple and cheese, or some oatcakes with hummus or something, just so you're getting the nice balance.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you don't have to eat masses, but it's just making sure that you are eating something and that you're not actually depriving your body. So that's really important. And you know, it can be sometimes that if you're not having enough variety in your diet, so if you know, and I've been guilty of this before because it's easy, if you know, you're eating the same meals each week, you know, you're always having a shepherd's pie, you're always having, you know, etc., etc. You know, we all have our staples that we fall back on, but if that becomes very rigid and you're not getting variety, particularly with vegetables, then that can also be a factor, because every single vegetable gives you a slightly different combination of vitamins and minerals, and that's why variety is so important in our diets. And then obviously the last thing, or, you know, not the last thing, but the last big thing is trying to support our hormones anyway. And so a lot of the things that I've just spoken about tie in with that. So it is, you know, thinking about how much caffeine we have. It is thinking about how much alcohol we're having. It is thinking about, am I eating lots of processed foods? Am I eating lots of sugary foods? You know, it is thinking about, am I eating regularly enough to maintain my blood sugar levels? And sometimes it's tricky because it's quite easy to start eating regularly but choose the wrong foods. And so, you know, just trying to factor all of these things in can be helpful, but they can also be quite overwhelming. So I'd just like to say, you know, start with one thing rather than trying to kind of chuck everything at it at once, particularly if you're doing it on your own without any support. Pick one thing, and once you've got the hang of that, pick another. So you might start with, you know, instead of drinking 6 cups of coffee or tea a day, you might take it down to 3. And then when you've done that for a week or so, if that feels okay for you, you might then decide that you're going to, instead of having, I don't know, cornflakes or Cocoa Pops every morning for breakfast, you're going to vary that and maybe have something like eggs on toast, or you're going to have an omelette some days, or you're going to have oats some days. So something that gives you a little bit more of a sustained energy release, which will help impact your blood sugar. And just work through the things that you can do quite slowly. Start with the thing that's going to be the easiest for you, I would say, so that you don't feel like you're depriving yourself. Also, it doesn't feel, you know, as though it's going to be a real challenge and that you're not ever going to be able to kind of keep it going. Because any change that you make, you want it to be sustainable. So that if it is having a positive impact, you can keep doing it. There's no point in doing something that is really, really hard for a week and then thinking, actually, this is just not, I can't do it, it's too hard, you know, reverting back. So it's got to be baby steps, I think, when we try and implement these changes, so that we feel comfortable with them and so that they can, you know, can be carried forwards.
Absolutely. And as always is basically the underlying message in all of the videos that we've ever recorded with you, but also the ones I've recorded with the other experts as well. Ultimately, the message is be kind to yourself, isn't it?
Oh,
Give
yeah.
yourself decent food. Try and cut back the stress. Try and get better sleep. And yeah, and perimenopause, I swear it comes along just to give us a slap round the chops and go, look after yourself.
100%, 100%. And it's that point in our lives when we are being asked to slow down and to really turn our attention in on ourselves rather than giving it out to everyone else. It is, and I always say to people, any change that you make in your diet or your lifestyle, you've got to do it from a place of love because you care about yourself, not because you hate yourself. So, it shouldn't be, I'm going to starve myself because yesterday I ate 3 chocolate bars, or I'm going to make myself go for a 10-mile run because I ate twice as much as I should at lunchtime. That you're bullying yourself if you do that. And that doesn't work, because that in itself creates stress hormones, which has an impact on our bodies. So it's got to be, actually, I'm going to try and eat better because I love my body and I want to be healthy. And eating better isn't starving yourself, and exercising because I think it will be beneficial for my health, whether that's physical or mental, and because I like it and enjoy it, because I deserve to look after myself, is very different to I've got to run 10 miles because I ate 2 cakes. And but unfortunately a lot of us have that that kind of mentality instilled into us, and it is actually, I don't know if they're still doing it, but you used to go, it might have been Tesco's or somewhere, or Sainsbury's, that were doing kind of the traffic light scheme, but on it would tell you how much exercise you had to do to eat that particular piece of food. And all of that for me is just like a massive no-no, because for me it just reinforces negative attitudes towards ourselves and our bodies, and towards food and our relationship with food. So I just always encourage people, please don't think like that. It does have to come from this place of, I want to look after myself, not I am going to punish myself.
Absolutely, 100%. Thank you so much, Claire.
You're welcome.